What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for October 24th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the podcast. Let's get started with a few housekeeping notes. First, be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont, and spread the word. If you're enjoying this, likely somebody else you know will as well. And that is the best way to grow this thing. I think the issues with the Google Podcast has been resolved. But again, the best way to stay in the loop is to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Be sure to check out Philly Goat. Yesterday I mentioned the backpack cooler and the duffel bag cooler that they have partnered with. Varsity Cooler is the company. And I know you've seen these coolers. They're awesome. Get Eagles-inspired coolers from Philly Goat, and then pick up the Ben Finklin tee that is designed by Brian Gerber from Wizard's World of Tattoos. All of that is on their website, phillygoat.com. They have you covered for everything else as well. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. But yes, the Varsity Cooler collaboration with either the backpack or the duffel bag is top-notch. I think I might pick up one of the backpack ones, like I mentioned yesterday, for the pool next summer. But these things are great for tailgates, going to a party. Actually, I thought about it yesterday. It'd be good for trick-or-treating, depending on how your neighborhood is. The way my neighborhood is, I ran out of beer last year. So if you had the cool backpack cooler or the duffel bag cooler, you should be good. But that's all at Philly Goat. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. Then check out my boys at the Clashing Conferences podcast. New football one dropped today. I cannot wait to have that on in the background today as I'm catching up on paperwork. Baseball drops tomorrow. And then stay tuned next week. There might be a special announcement and collaboration coming, so stay tuned for that. But check them out anywhere you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. All right. So let's start with a recap of this question of the day yesterday. I asked you, are you on board with the Sixers' plan with Joe to manage his health? 64% of you said no, and I asked that question before it got crazy. I guess let's start with the game. They lost 124-109 without Joe or PG. Tyrese had 25 points, but struggled to find a shot. I'll be honest, I only watched till halftime, but looked like he was pressing to try to find a shot, and I'm sure that Milwaukee was keying on him. Andre Drummond had 13 boards. Kelly Oubre had 21 points. Doc was rightfully booed during introductions, as well as anytime he was on the Jumbotron. But tough one. And the big story, I guess, came after the game. I know right before the game, Nick Nurse was, I guess it was during the pregame shoot-around, but Nick Nurse was asked about Joe and made it perfectly clear that this is all part of a plan. He did not re-injure himself. And that came on the heels as well of the NBA saying they're going to investigate due to him not really having an injury designation, being a primetime game. That's one of the big pushes they had last year, was making sure guys aren't resting for the sake of resting, which on one hand I get, but on the other hand, as an owner or even a coach, I would kind of counter with, it's my team, my decision to do what I want to do. And as fans, they have to kind of understand and accept it. But as someone who found out as we were pulling into the parking lot a couple years ago that Joe wasn't playing, it is disappointing. So I get it, but there has to be some sort of happy medium, especially with certain players. But the NBA is going to be investigating that. The fact that Nick Nurse said he did not re-injure himself, this is all part of the plan. And then the fact came out a little tidbit in Tyrese's post-game press conference that he didn't really participate in training camp. Not sure if that's all part of the plan as well. But again, on the surface, yes, it looks bad. It's kind of a big FU to the fans. And like I said, I totally get that. But if you zoom out and take a look at the big picture, having Joe miss 3 games to start the season is not the worst thing in the world. I personally think what happened is this was always their plan with Joe, and the fact that Paul George injured himself sort of caught them off guard, and that is why this is a bigger deal right now than what it is. And I know there's a lot of people out there like, oh, they need to tell us the plan and blah, 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 blah. And I always say, and a lot of the people that are saying this are people in the media who are trying to push and get a story, which again, I get. They have a job to do as well. But at the end of the day, these teams don't have any obligations to tell you anything. And truthfully, I'd rather them not. Whether it's Nick Sirianni and the game plan, what's going on in the locker room, whether it's the Sixers telling us their plan for Joe, I'd rather them not put that out there. It's like not quite on the same level, but it's like you don't give your secrets away. And I don't know. It's a soap opera, and I still stand by my prediction. I think they'll get it together. They are in Toronto tomorrow, and don't know if Paul George is going to play. We know Joe's not going to play, but this story should get interesting once the NBA investigates and finds out. So we're either going to find out that Joe legitimately re-injured himself at some point, or the Sixers are just basically saying, F you, Adam Silver, and your rules. We're going to do what's best for our team. Fines be damned. And if that's the case, I don't mind it. I really don't. I know there's a lot of people upset that probably bought tickets for yesterday. I've been in that position before, so I get it. But big picture, long term, I think this is the right way to go. I have to mention these two things. One I saw on Twitter, one I heard on the radio. Somebody, as I was at the gym this morning, I was listening to WIP. Somebody called in and said, if Joe was a horse, they would have shot him. And it's just kind of one of those things. If you're a horse racing fan, you know what happens if a horse gets injured. And I know it's a messed up thing, especially in the world we live in. But I just thought that was a hilarious analogy. And truthfully, I did see somebody else on the voice and text line yesterday come in and chime in that said, the Sixers, if they were a person, they'd have a punchable face. And I don't disagree with that. I think if the Sixers were personified, they'd have a punchable face. But let me know what you think. 267-495-8531 on this whole Joe fiasco. We'll have a question of the day later in the show. And then you have our hockey team. Lost 6-3. They got down early 4-0. They battled back. I will say they did show some fight. Maybe that's a sign of improvement. They got to within 1 goal and then gave up 2 empty netters. Mishkov with a goal and an assist. But, I mean, they're getting off to slow starts. There must be something in the Philadelphia water right now that between the Phillies, Eagles, and Sixers right now, they're getting off to slow starts. But maybe that's a sign of improvement, though, from the Flyers that they showed some fight. They are a young team. Keep in mind, this is a rebuild. I know we don't necessarily want to hear it, but it is a rebuild. They have back-to-back this weekend down at the Center, Minnesota on Saturday, and Montreal on Sunday. All right, some Eagles news and notes heading into this game against Cincinnati. Didn't realize this, but the Eagles are 0-4-1 since 2000 against the Bengals. Last time they beat them was Christmas Eve 2000. Donovan was the quarterback. It was pre-TO, so we had Charles Johnson and Torrance Small, I think, were on that team. Hugh Douglas, Ike Reese, B. Doc. Deuce was on that team. So that was the last time the Eagles beat. So since I've had season tickets, the Eagles have not beaten the Bengals. And we know they've never won in Cincinnati. But I think it's an interesting comparison. It should be I'm looking forward to a good game this week because these teams are basically the same team. You have the Eagles in the NFC, and it's like the Bengals are the AFC version of the Eagles. And they have some wins over some pretty crappy teams. So they beat the Browns. They beat the Giants. They also beat Carolina, and they're 3-4. The Eagles are 4-3, or Eagles are 4-2. Sorry, I forgot we had the bye already. but two of the wins came against the Browns and the Giants. So they're very similar teams looking to get right, looking to prove that they're back. I do think, like I said, this is going to be probably a good game. It's the best offense that this Eagles defense. But again, I think a lot of things that happened in that game against Cleveland and that game against the Giants is going to help the confidence out. Sidney Brown is playing against his twin brother Chase, so that's a cool little subplot there. Not sure how much time Sidney's going to get. I wouldn't mind seeing him on the field more. The Bengals are wearing their white out uniforms, the white helmets, white jerseys, white pants. They're 4-0 in there. And, I mean, all the numbers and trends are saying this should be a Bengals win. Still not sure yet. Still kind of looking at this, looking at different matchups and things like that, getting ready for the 3 keys to the game on Sunday. And then finally, Saquon won Offensive Player of the Week for the NFC for the second time this year. And I saw a stat, he only won it twice while with the New York Giants. But we'll have more on this game as the weekend progresses. This should be a good gauge today at practice and to see where injuries are. I believe Sirianni will speak today. I don't know if he speaks today or tomorrow and the coordinators speak today or whether they spoke yesterday, but we should have a little bit more insight to this game moving forward. All right, today we're going to go back to 1959. And on this day in 1959, the Philadelphia Warriors beat the New York Knicks 118-108 up in Madison Square Garden. For the Philadelphia Warriors that day, making his NBA debut was Overbrook's own Wilt Chamberlain. Now, we're getting into the part of the year on this podcast where I legitimately could do this day in Wilt Chamberlain history just because of the ridiculous numbers that he put up. But back to Wilt and his NBA. That was fun. Stuff is falling off my desk. It's a crazy Thursday here. But the year before, Wilt played up with the Harlem Globetrotters after leaving Kansas. He wasn't allowed to join the NBA due to the rules. And all he did in his debut was score 43 points and have 28 rebounds. Had an awesome rookie season. Made the All-Star team. Was Rookie of the Year and MVP. Averaged 37 and 27, which just let that sink in of what he averaged as a rookie. Now, I know I have a text chain with my family, my cousins, my uncle. My uncle is the old school guy, grew up watching Wilt and is a big Wilt guy. Thinks he's the greatest player to ever play. You have my cousins who are around my age who grew up watching Jordan. So there's always an argument between Jordan and Wilt. I will say one of the key arguments against Wilt is everybody says, well, look at the level of competition he played and the guys were smaller and this, that, and the other. There wasn't as many teams, though. And one of the things I will say that I heard on the radio the other day, I was listening to Sonny Hill on my way to the gym. He mentioned that the arguments about the level of competition and everything, he said while there's some validity to them, Wilt was the strongest and just fastest, most freak athlete he's ever seen. And he talked about some of the referees and Sonny Hill, by the way, is like basketball royalty in Philly. So if you don't know much about Sonny Hill, look him up. One of the all-time just great basketball minds, great basketball people in the city of Philadelphia. But I guess he was saying he had a referees camp or something and he's very tied in with the league or was the early days of the NBA. And he said the referees would say that they could have called a foul every single play on Wilt Chamberlain. So while he may have been bigger and stronger than a lot of the players, the fact of the matter remains, he was fouled every play and still was strong enough and that much of a freak athlete to still put up those numbers. So just one of those little tidbits, and about once or twice a year on that text chain, we get into the heated debate, Wilt versus Michael. More on that here in a minute. But back to the 59-60 Warriors. This team was stacked. I mean, and to say that the level of competition wasn't good, they had Paul Arizin, Guy Rogers, and Tom Gola, who were all NBA or Pro Basketball Hall of Famers. They're in the Philadelphia Hall of Fame. They're just all-timers in the city of Philadelphia. And they still couldn't beat the Celtics. So, I mean, maybe the league was top-heavy back then. I don't know. But the fact that you had 4 Hall of Famers on a team, one of them being Wilt Chamberlain, and you still couldn't get past the Celtics, that tells me that the level of competition was pretty good. But all 4 of those guys are in the Naismith Hall of Fame. But back to Wilt. That is our question of the day. Have a little bit of fun with this. Is Wilt the greatest of all time? Or is it Michael Jordan? You can make the argument for Kobe. Some people will argue LeBron. I am not one of them. I think overall, and I was always, when I grew up, it was always, you don't really include centers in the conversation because you could also put Shaq in there, possibly even Kareem. But who's the greatest of all time in the NBA? Is it Wilt or is it Michael? And if you're going to come on and say it's LeBron, don't even bother because you're wrong. But 267-495-8531, that is the Back to the Future voice and text line. Wilt or MJ, who is the GOAT in the NBA? Let me know your thoughts. I could make a solid argument for both. But I'm anxious to see what you think. Let's have a good discussion, good debate today about this. Now, back to Wilt, Paul, Guy, and Tom Gola. They're all also in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, and that leads us nicely into today's Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame 2024 inductee spotlight. Today we're going to look at Alice Putnam Willets, a field hockey and lacrosse player, also known lovingly by her teammates and friends as Putty. She is a Swarthmore native. She is a field hockey player, coach, lacrosse player, coach. She played for the U.S. national field hockey team for 10 years, where she served as captain. She was a 3-sport star at Temple, field hockey, basketball, and tennis. She's a 4-time All-American for field hockey. She played 13 years on the U.S. lacrosse national team. She introduced lacrosse to Temple, where she coached for a few years. And if you know anything about Temple's women's lacrosse, it's one of their better sports at Temple, just consistently one of the better teams in the country. She also coached and taught at Swarthmore High School from 1962 to 1983, where she compiled a 155-20 record, 5 unbeaten seasons, 3 league titles. She also taught and coached at Swarthmore College, Shipley School, and Strathaven High School. One of the things I love most about Putty is the fact that she was the Outstanding Educator of America in 1974, a woman after my own heart. Education is key. She's in the Temple University Sports Hall of Fame, the Delaware County Athletes Hall of Fame, Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame, U.S. Field Hockey Hall of Fame, National Lacrosse Hall of Fame, and she will be inducted November 7th into the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. Putty did it all, from teaching, coaching field hockey, coaching lacrosse, playing. She's a Hall of Famer in every aspect of the word. And I think, to me, the best thing she did was be the Outstanding Educator of 1974. But my thoughts are biased. But anyway, Alice Putnam Willets, a.k.a. Putty, is today's Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame 2024 inductee spotlight. If you want more information on the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, all the information you need is in the description. Lots of good things in the pipeline with the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, so stay tuned for that. But Alice Putnam Willets is today's 2024 Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame inductee spotlight. We talked about another Philadelphia Sports Hall of Famer, Wilt Chamberlain, and his Philadelphia Sports Hall of Famer teammates, Paul Arizin, Guy Rogers, and Tom Gola. On this day in 1959, they beat the New York Knicks 118-108. It was Wilt's NBA debut. He scored 30, had 28 boards, played all 48 minutes, en route to an MVP and Rookie of the Year honors where he averaged 37 and 27. But let me know, is Wilt the GOAT or is it MJ, somebody else, not named LeBron? Let me know, 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. I do think the Sonny Hill information really opened my eyes somewhat because to hear him, who has been involved with Philadelphia basketball since the very beginning through today's players, even with guys like Joe, for him to say how tough and how strong Wilt really was, to me that carries a lot of weight. But let me know your thoughts. Who is the GOAT in the NBA, Wilt or MJ? Like I said, you want to make an argument for Kobe, Magic, I'm fine with it. You want to make a case for LeBron, go somewhere else. We'll have more on the Eagles-Bengals as this game gets closer. Like I said, I feel as though this is a matchup of two very similar teams who came into the season Super Bowl expectations, not living up to those expectations so far, both looking for a statement win, a statement performance. So it should be a good one. But we'll have more on that as we go. Let me know your thoughts, too, on the whole Sixers thing. Is this a story? Is this something we should be worried about? 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Kudos, because whoever sent it was anonymous, but kudos to whoever said the Sixers personified would have a punchable face. I did get a good laugh out of that. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for October 24th, 2024. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Thursday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.